It was supposed to be a warm and charming morning interview. Lorraine Kelly, known for her bright smile and polite tone, was ready to welcome one of Britain's most beloved actors, Sir Ian McKellen. The cameras rolled, the studio lights glowed, and viewers tuned in expecting laughter, nostalgia, and maybe a few theatrical stories. But what unfolded instead was one of the most shocking moments in live television history. Sir Ian McKellen, the legendary actor known for his roles in The Lord of the Rings and X-Men, entered the studio with his usual grace, waving to the audience as they applauded. Lorraine greeted him warmly. "It's such a joy to have you here, Ian. You've inspired generations." "Thank you, Lorraine," he replied with a faint smile, though something in his eyes seemed distant, as if he wasn't quite in the mood for light-hearted banter. The interview began smoothly. They talked about his theater tour, his reflections on Shakespeare, and his passion for mentoring young actors. But as the segment moved toward more personal topics, Lorraine brought up something that instantly changed the tone of the room. "Ian," she began softly, "you've always spoken about aging gracefully. But recently, there's been talk about you possibly retiring. Is that true?" The audience fell silent. Ian blinked, then gave a small, almost icy laugh. "Retiring? Lorraine, that's a rather rude way to start the morning, don't you think?" The host, visibly startled, tried to diffuse the tension. "Oh no, I didn't mean it rudely at all. It's just, well, you've had such a long, incredible career. I wondered if you ever think about slowing down." But Ian's expression hardened. "You see, that's the problem with these shows. People assume that just because I'm 85, I'm done. I'm not some relic to be placed on a shelf." Lorraine, still smiling but now nervous, said, "Of course not. I only meant—" Ian interrupted sharply. "Lorraine, you meant exactly what you said. You meant to suggest that my age defines my worth. That's not journalism. That's laziness." The control room fell into chaos. Producers were signaling Lorraine to move on, but she hesitated. "Ian, I think our viewers admire you because of your strength, your spirit. Then perhaps they'd prefer to see a real conversation," he snapped, leaning forward. "Instead of these shallow, morning television platitudes." The audience gasped. Lorraine's trademark smile faltered. "I think we're having one, Sir Ian," she said, trying to hold her ground. "I've always respected your honesty." "Respect?" Ian scoffed. "Respect would mean letting artists speak for themselves rather than feeding them questions from cue cards written by interns." For a brief moment, the air in the studio felt electric. No one dared to breathe. Lorraine's hand trembled slightly as she glanced off camera, waiting for a signal. But Ian continued. "You invited me here to talk about my work," he said, voice rising, "not to discuss whether I'm old enough to disappear quietly from the stage. I'm not done yet, Lorraine. And I don't need your show to remind me that I'm still alive." A stunned silence filled the room. Lorraine, clearly shaken, said in a calm voice, "I think perhaps we should take a short break." But Ian wasn't finished. "Yes, take a break," he said bitterly. "That's what people do when they can't handle the truth." The cameras cut to commercials, and the audience sat frozen. Behind the scenes, producers rushed onto the set, trying to calm both parties. Lorraine stood up, trying to speak with him, but Ian waved her off. "I'm leaving," he said coldly. "You wanted a headline. You've got one." Within minutes, he was escorted from the studio, his microphone still attached, his voice echoing faintly through the hallways. Art deserves better than morning television gossip. When the show returned from break, Lorraine appeared composed but visibly shaken. She addressed the viewers carefully. "We do apologize for that unexpected moment. Live television can be unpredictable, and sometimes emotions run high. We have great respect for Sir Ian McKellen and wish him the very best." But by then, the clip had already gone viral. Within hours, social media exploded. Hashtags like hashtag Ian vs Lorraine and hashtag McKellen meltdown began trending across Twitter and TikTok. Some defended the actor, saying he had every right to be offended by the question. Others sided with Lorraine, calling his reaction unprofessional and cruel. Even other celebrities weighed in. Patrick Stewart tweeted, "Ian is passionate about his craft. Sometimes that passion burns brighter than expected. Still love you, old friend." Meanwhile, Piers Morgan posted, "Good for Ian McKellen. Morning TV needs a bit of real talk once in a while." By the evening, Lorraine's producers released a formal statement, clarifying that, no disrespect was intended, and that they hold Sir Ian McKellen in the highest regard. But the damage was done. The video had been viewed over 12 million times by nightfall. And somewhere in his quiet London home, Ian McKellen reportedly told a friend over tea they wanted a soundbite. "I gave them truth." The following morning, headlines across Britain screamed with disbelief. Sir Ian storms off Lorraine. Live TV chaos, McKellen vs. Kelly. National treasure or national temper? It was everywhere, on breakfast radios, on talk shows, and across every social media feed. What had begun as a routine interview had turned into a cultural flashpoint. Some called it a public meltdown. Others called it a moment of truth. But no one could stop talking about it. Lorraine Kelly arrived at ITV studios early that day, long before the cameras were on. Her usually cheerful demeanor had faded into quiet worry. She'd received hundreds of messages overnight, some supporting her, others accusing her of disrespecting a legend. Her producer, Dan, met her in the hallway. "We've had over 2 million views on the clip already," he said grimly. "Half the comments are on your side. Half, not so much." Lorraine sighed. "He's a brilliant man," she murmured, "but I never meant to offend him. I was just doing my job." Meanwhile, across London, Sir Ian McKellen sat by his fireplace in his Hampstead home, scrolling through his phone with a frown. His close friend and fellow actor, Patrick Stewart, had already called him that morning. "Ian," Patrick had said gently, "the internet's gone mad. You need to say something, anything, before they turn you into a villain." "I'm not apologizing for being honest," Ian replied firmly. "But perhaps I should clarify my honesty." By noon, his publicist had drafted a statement. But Ian rejected the first two versions, saying they sounded too polished, too corporate. Instead, he insisted on writing it himself. That afternoon, a simple message appeared on Ian's verified account. "Greater than, I have the greatest respect for Lorraine Kelly and for all who bring art and conversation to the public. My frustration yesterday was not with her personally, but with the shallow nature of modern interviews that reduce an artist's life to headlines. I stand by my belief, passion and truth should never be mistaken for anger." Ian McKellen. The post went viral instantly, but this time, the tide began to turn in his favor. Thousands of fans praised his candor. Others posted clips of his past interviews, highlighting his wisdom and wit. Lorraine, watching from her dressing room, nodded quietly as she read it. "That's the Ian I know," she whispered. "The one who cares deeply." When her show aired that morning, she decided to address the situation directly. As the familiar theme music faded, Lorraine looked straight into the camera. "Before we begin today," she said softly, "I want to speak about what happened yesterday with Sir Ian McKellen. Live television can be unpredictable. We sometimes say things that come out differently than we intend. I have enormous admiration for Ian, he's a remarkable actor and a kind man. If my words caused him any upset, I truly regret that. We've spoken privately, and I hope he knows he's always welcome here." Her voice trembled slightly as she finished. The audience, sitting in respectful silence, broke into gentle applause. Behind the scenes, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Ian himself. "Greater than, thank you, Lorraine. Let's both blame the morning coffee. Hot beverage." Lorraine laughed out loud when she read it. "Now that's the Ian I remember," she said with a smile. By evening, news outlets were reporting a peaceful resolution. Photos of Ian and Lorraine from earlier interviews resurfaced, showing them laughing together on set. ITV issued an official statement confirming that there was no ongoing conflict, and that both parties had great mutual respect. But while the media storm calmed, something deeper lingered. The clash had sparked a national conversation about how the media treats aging artists. On morning shows, talk radio, and online forums, people debated the same question: had television become too shallow, too obsessed with gossip and sensationalism? A week later, Ian appeared again, not on Lorraine, but on a BBC cultural program. This time, the host asked him directly, "Sir Ian, do you regret what happened on Lorraine Kelly's show?" He paused for a long moment before answering. "Regret?" he repeated thoughtfully. "No. I think sometimes, truth comes out messily. Lorraine and I both love our craft, hers is storytelling, mine is acting. We simply collided for a moment in the middle." The host smiled. "And have you spoken since?" "Yes, Ian said with a chuckle. She invited me back. I told her only if she lets me ask her the questions next time. The audience burst into laughter, and once again, Sir Ian McKellen was back to being Britain's beloved eccentric, sharp, charming, and impossible not to adore. Lorraine, meanwhile, decided to take something valuable from the incident. She later told The Guardian, "I think that day reminded me why people tune in, not for gossip, but for connection." Maybe that's what Ian was trying to say all along. In the months that followed, their brief feud became part of television lore, replayed, analyzed, even turned into memes. But both of them handled it with grace and humor, turning what could have been a career-damaging clash into a heartfelt reminder of humanity beneath the spotlight. When Lorraine eventually invited Ian back for a charity special months later, he accepted. The two hugged on camera, and Lorraine joked, "Promise me no dramatic exits this time." Ian grinned mischievously and replied, "Only if you promise no questions about retirement." The studio erupted in laughter, and for the first time since that chaotic morning, everything felt right again.